Hey guys, what's up? We got some work to do. Boats are in the water. Pop the trunk here. I think I got everything. Anyway, oh, look at how nice it is today. Ooh, it's like, I don't know, you guys would call it 75 degrees. It is gorgeous. We're gonna grab the tool bag here. It's a bit overloaded at the moment. Oh. Yeah, these DeWalt bags are great though. I love them. Yeah, so we got to do some wiring. So when we were in the Bahamas, obviously we almost sank, and that led to a lot of salt corrosion on a lot of different stuff. Don't drop that. And sorry, down the back, here's Lady K. Anyway, sorry, I got my hands full, I can't really maneuver. Anyway, led to saltwater corrosion. So our negative bus bar, that where all of our negatives come into the battery box, that bus bar got a lot of corrosion. So while we were in the Bahamas, I swapped it. I bought a new one at a local Bahamas chandlery, the only one in Georgetown. And that one has gone bad now. It hasn't been underwater, right? So it should be fine, but it's not. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Take the boards out of here. Gonna make some new boards this year too. I'm just having a bad day. Okay, let's go down. Okay, so I gotta move stuff around here. We're gonna do it though. Unprepared is fun. The engine cover off because we gotta do oil changes and stuff. Or not oil changes, filter changes. So I'll show you the bus bar I'm talking about. In the battery bay. How well you can see it, the camera adjust here. This bus bar is where all the negatives for most of the stuff in the boat come into, and you can see the corrosion on there here. So that was just swapped in the Bahamas. Now, I didn't have access to all the great things we have access to in North America while we were in the Bahamas. I had to use cheap eyelets. We had wire, so the wire was good, but the cheap eyelets all just completely corroded, as you can see. The bus bar seems to be corroding. I didn't have dielectric grease. Like, you just can't get your hands on a lot of this stuff while you're down there. Oh, I gotta open some hatches. It's hot. Sorry. Get a little breeze in here, maybe. Anyway, so you don't have access to all this cool stuff that you would be like, hey, why didn't you use the good fittings? And why didn't you do this and that? We couldn't, and it was like, just get it done to make it work. So now what we're finding when we put the boat in is the battery monitor right there stopped working for the first time ever, and I started to trace the problem back while the boat was on the hard, and I found that the ground was corroded, and hence the reason the bilge pump didn't work, the battery thing didn't work, a bunch of things just don't work. So before we hauled in, I put some temporary wires, so just a negative and then a fused positive, that run to the bilge pump, so that we would have a working bilge pump. Obviously you want that. And that was just for lunch. So now today what we're here to do is undo that temporary solution, fix that bus bar, fix everything, rewire it, and I'm gonna do a distribution block at the foot of the mast, which is over there. So the idea is I'm gonna run hot from there to the foot of the mast, run it to a block there of positive distribution, and then a negative there too. And then the bilge pump can run forward to there, and then the toilet needs power, so the toilet will run aft to that same block. So the bilge pump and the toilet will share a circuit, but the toilet only needs, it's this tiny little 12 volt fan, so it doesn't really draw anything. So yeah, we'll do that. And then also I need to run new wires from the DC panel. So we have our spreader lights, our anchor light, our anchor light, our spreader lights, and then our steaming light. We're gonna run brand new from the DC panel through, and it'll come to the foot of the mast as well on the same distribution block, so that we can power the mast. Okay, that was a mouthful. Let's get started. Okay guys, I have been making a sufficient mess trying to find everything. So I got my electrical bag that always has my crimpers and things like that. Wiring is, I bought a new set of ends here with the heat shrink. So, you know, those will be pretty good. I got my tools out. I'm gonna use this as my electrical working area so it catches all the stray garbage, keeps it tidy, and then I can clean it up afterwards. I've got some old yellow wire. I'm just using it for a couple of little short runs of grounds. So here's my plan. I have this bus bar. So what I'm planning is, at the foot of the mast, right now it's just a mess. You can see that needs to be replaced. So I've got a new one. So I'm gonna share all grounds equal from everything that comes down the mast, which is 3 circuits. You have your anchor light, your steaming light, and then I have my deck lights. I'm going to use a heavy gauge wire for that, and I'm going to run 1 ground right at the bottom of the mast. So it'll ground all 3 circuits in the mast, and it will ground the toilet, and it will ground the bilge. The wire gauge, I've done the math on the amps that I can possibly pull with every single thing on, and the wire gauge is sufficient, just barely, if everything were on at once. But not that everything would be on at once, because you wouldn't run all 3 of your lights on your mast all at the same time. Anyway, it's 1, 2, or 3. Never all 3. So that said, at least I'm safe. I can run everything all at once just on that wire gauge. But anyway, so I'm going to pop this guy at the foot of the mast there. And my plan is I'm going to have positive come in here for the bilge and the toilet. And positive come out there to go to the bilge and go to the toilet. So that'll be 1 circuit. And then the mast will be 1, 2, 3 positives. And then down here, these 3, actually it's probably those 3, I'm going to use as negatives. So I'm just going to make a jumper, and I'll show you, I've sort of started one here, a jumper to go from there to there to there. So I guess I'll show you guys the finished product. It might not make sense right now, but I think it's going to be the cleanest, simplest, easiest way to make this work. And make it work without having to spend a ton of money. So stick with me, I'm on it. I got a new spool of wire here too, marine grade, tinned wire, all that fun stuff. So I got, I don't know, 100 feet I think there, and I gotta go down the mast as well. I think I'm gonna rewire a couple of the circuits in the mast, so let's go. Now for the messy part. We've got the bus bar sort of on its way. Now we have to go through the old wire, and there's some stuff here. So we're going to be cutting it out. This is an Ethernet cable. It ran through the floor here, across, and it went up under here, and it went to our boat router so that we could have Wi-Fi. And the other end went up the mast to our Rogue Wave antenna on top of the mast, so that we could grab Wi-Fi signals from up to 7 miles away with that thing. And truly, it does work. If you know a Wi-Fi password for a marina that's within a few miles, you're online. It's really cool. But as you can see, it didn't fare so well. This was underwater when we almost sunk. We never bothered to fix it after we almost sunk because we were on cellular internet by then, so it didn't really matter. But you guys can see, like, it is bad. It's in really bad shape. So we're not going to fuss about. We're going to go like that, and we're going to get rid of it. And then we're going to sort of do that with, I think, everything. This was the high water alarm that was going off while we were almost sinking. You know, it's obviously not fared very well. So, yeah, we're going to gut all of the wiring. And the hardest part, the easy part is going from the batteries in the fuse box to here for the bilge and the toilet. The harder part is going from the DC panel down because you want those switches up there to run the mast. So that'll be a bit harder. Demonetized on YouTube. I'm sweating. You can probably tell. I just cracked a cold one because it's bloody hot, man. Cheers. So, I guess before we left on our big journey, I took so much painstaking effort to wire the whole boat. I wired it bow to stern, every single wire was replaced. All routed, all mapped out, all written down, all perfect. And then when we almost sunk, everything was ruined. Not everything, but well, no, I think pretty much everything. The engine wiring was fine, you know, knock on wood. Anyway, now I'm like sort of having to rip it all out because when I redid it in the Bahamas, it was sort of a do the best you can with what you've got. And what I had wasn't a lot. And we couldn't afford to like really throw a lot of money at the problem because we had to replace like the solar charge controller and the inverter and all these other big components, and it cost us thousands and thousands of dollars. So I couldn't buy spools of marine wire and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I did the best with what I had. But now it's time to rip out the rat's nest and start over with wiring it meticulously again. So, and drawing it all out, mapping it all out, labeling everything, making it perfect. So if we ever sell the boat, everything will be labeled, everything will make sense. There'll be wire runs that are done in harnesses, not just, you know, one wire here, one wire there. I want everything run on a trunk line, like together to where they have to go. So out of the battery bay, there'll be 3 trunk lines, one to the DC panel, one down into the bilge, and one toward the engine. That's it. And they'll all go together. And yeah, so that's the plan right now, is we're just gonna make a really good go of this and wire that battery bay perfectly. I gotta put in a battery support, I gotta do some other stuff in there. I'd like to actually do a new bus bar in there. I'd like to redo everything. Got a bunch of fuses in there. We've got the breakers for the panels, the breakers for the the power inverter, and I got a fuse box in there for the constant power items like the bilge pump and the toilet. But yeah, that's the plan right now, is I'm just gonna keep sweating and keep pulling out old wires, you know, just keep at it, keep at it. And hopefully we can get everything rewired and everything great within a couple of days, because we have like 2 more weeks before we have to have the mast up. So I want to get this done first, then rewire the mast, the internals of the mast, and then put the mast up. So I got 2 weeks. I'd like to get out sailing, obviously, but you know, the after sinking, you don't realize this, but how much damage saltwater really does. And this is like a year later, right? And I'm still finding damage. Like wires wick. I don't think I have any that I could, yeah, there's one. So when you look at the wire, it's not a metal color. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's like this ashy color. And if you actually check the ohm resistance on this with a voltmeter, if you were to go end to end, you would see there's a huge amount of resistance that shouldn't be there. It's not a clean connection anymore. So I was starting to get bad ground situations with the battery monitor, with the anchor light stopped working for a while. It was all just bad ground. And if you guys know anything about electronics on a boat, a bad ground is probably the hardest thing to chase down. And everything was going bad ground on us. So it's because of this. And I read somewhere that salt water will wick up a wire from the exposed area, which is those cheap eyelets that I had to buy when we were down there. It'll wick up the wire 3 feet. And I've actually confirmed this with the wiring that came out of the bilge to go up the mast. 3 feet. The salt water will wick up inside the sheath 3 feet. So that's why I'm just saying, you know what? I got a spool of good wire. I'm replacing everything. Let's just go all in. Let's make this boat absolutely perfect, because hopefully in the next couple years, I will be able to buy a little bit bigger boat, maybe do a little bit bigger sort of cruising into like the bigger oceans and do some bigger things with my life. So I want this boat to be absolutely immaculate when it sells. That's the goal. Anyway, I'm gonna keep So I got new wire run. Man, I'm so tired and it's so hot and I'm losing daylight, as you can see. So I got to call it quits. I got to go home, have some supper. And then I got to work in the morning. So I got new wire run from the fuse box through to the terminal block we put at the bottom of the mast. Off that terminal block, we have the bilge pump hooked up. We have the toilet hooked up. I tested the bilge pump. It's working. It's good. The toilet fan is moving. That's good. LED's on. Great. Fresh, brand new wire everywhere. And I got a 5 amp fuse in there, which is what the bilge pump calls for. And even with both things running and the bilge pump running, it doesn't blow the fuse. So that's good. You want to run the right fuse in your bilge pump. I can't stress that enough, because fires happen. If you run, like, let's say we put a 10 amp fuse in a bilge pump that calls for a 5 amp fuse. If something gets in the blades of the bilge pump, it'll stop the pump itself. It'll stop the blades from spinning, but the fuse won't overload because it's too high. You put a 10 amp in there. So what'll eventually happen is the wire will have to give. It'll just keep sucking more and more and more power until A, the fuse blows, or B, the wire melts. And if the wire melts, it could cause a fire. So I can't stress enough, read the manual that came with your bilge pump. They will recommend a certain fuse size. Use that fuse. You want that fuse to blow. If your bilge pump gets bound up by some debris in the bilge, you want that fuse to blow. Don't just throw a 15 in there or throw a 10 in there or whatever you want. Anyway, the Anchor marine grade wire is right there. It's getting down to less on the spool than I'd like. But we're using the right stuff. I still got to run the entire length of the mast. That was 100 feet when I started, so if there's 55 feet left in there, then we're okay, but I don't think there is. So we might be ordering another spool of wire. The boat is an utter disaster, like absolutely chaos in here. I don't even know where to start. It was clean when I got here, and now it's not. So whatever. You know what? The lights are all working. The batteries are working. We are losing 1.1 amp right now. Negative 1.1. We're not plugged into the dock, so I'm just relying on solar, right? But the batteries are full. Tomorrow I'm sure it'll charge back up. But I've had the stereo on and I've had my music going and all that kind of stuff. All the lights are on. So we're still like 99% battery, but we're losing power right now because I got everything on. So I'm going to call it quits. I'm going to pack it up and I am going to go home, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.